If your life only feels valuable when you're improving it, are you really living a good life? You've been taught to treat your days like a project, not in a dramatic way, just quietly. You count the hours you use well, you feel guilty when you rest, you feel behind when you're not progressing. And the scary part is, it looks sensible from the outside. Self-improvement culture doesn't usually say sacrifice your life, it says optimize it. But when you take that logic too far, everything becomes something you should be using properly. Even your evenings, even your weekends, even the moments that were meant to be yours. Success essentially gets defined in a really narrow way. More output, more discipline, more progress, more proof. And balance gets treated like a nice extra, something that you'll earn once you've made it, something that you'll get back when things calm down. But things never really calm down on their own. If you're ambitious, there's always another target. If you're responsible, there's always another demand. If you're capable, people will always keep handing you more. So you start living like your real life is the bit that you'll get to later. You tell yourself this is temporary. You tell yourself that this is just another busy season. You tell yourself that you're building something. And you might be, but you can build a career while your actual day-to-day life gets smaller and smaller. You can become more impressive while becoming less present. You can become more disciplined while becoming more numb. And none of that shows up in a highlight reel. Work-life balance isn't a luxury. It's the base layer that stops your ambition turning into a pressure that you can't switch off. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. The problem isn't that you work hard. The problem is when you stop recovering properly and call it drive. Because high performance without recovery doesn't stay high. At first you still function, you assume it's fine, you still get things done, so you assume you can handle it. But the costs start showing up in the boring places. You're more irritable over small things. You struggle to think clearly in the afternoon. You stop making good decisions and start making fast ones. You begin living on mental shortcuts. You react instead of choosing. You scroll instead of resting. You snack instead of eating healthy. And you don't always notice it happening because it slowly creeps in. Your normal starts to shift. Tired becomes your default, tension becomes background noise, and your brain starts treating constant strain like ordinary life. That's why self-improvement content can be so misleading, because a lot of it assumes endless energy. It assumes you can train harder, sleep less, wake earlier, push more, and somehow not pay for it. It talks like your mind is just a machine that you can upgrade, but your mind runs on a body and your body keeps the score. If you don't build recovery into your life, your system will force it on you eventually. Maybe as burnout, maybe as anxiety, maybe as low mood, maybe as feeling detached from your own life. And sometimes the hardest part is this. You can be doing everything right and still feel worse. Because what you're doing right is performance, not living. When your standards are only ever about output, you never finish. Even on a good day, you could have done more. Even when you succeed, your brain moves the goalposts. So you don't feel proud, you feel briefly relieved. And relief isn't the same as satisfaction. A balanced life isn't a lazy life. It's a life where your energy has somewhere to return to instead of only ever being spent. Here's the shift that changes everything. You don't earn balance, you decide what your life is allowed to cost. Because if you don't decide, then your job will decide, your phone will decide, other people's expectations will decide. And you'll wake up with a life that looks successful, but feels like you're constantly catching up to it. So make balance a non-negotiable foundation, not a reward. Not in a perfect way, but in a real way. Start by setting a minimum life floor. A basic level of sleep that you protect each week, a basic level of movement, some time allocated where you're not on. Time where you're not improving, fixing, learning, or proving. Just time where you're a person. Then look at what you're measuring. If your only scoreboard is productivity, then you'll always feel like you're losing. So add a second scoreboard that actually matches a human life. Did you speak to someone you care about properly this week? Did you spend time without rushing? Did you feel any sense of enjoyment doing something that wasn't useful? Those things aren't soft. They're what stop your life from becoming a long to-do list with a salary attached. And yes, some people are carrying heavy realities. Long shifts, money stress, caring responsibilities, health problems. This isn't about pretending that you can fix everything with a routine. It's about not letting self-improvement culture guilt you into sacrificing the very little recovery time that you do have. Because if you're already stretched, you don't need another standard to fail. You need permission to protect your nervous system like it matters. You can still be ambitious, but ambition works better when your life has space. Not empty space, but breathing space. So here's the question that decides what happens next. Are you building a life that you can actually live inside? Or are you just building a life that looks good from the outside?